Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of council, our senior leadership team. We will call the regular council session for the 12th of September to order at 6 p.m. Thanks very much for your attention and for those who are also joining us remotely from home as well. At this point in time, I would call upon Councillor Govesi. She has the adoption of the agenda, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Parker, that the agenda is prepared for the council meeting of September 12, 2022 be approved.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion from members of council? Seeing none, we'll call that question. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is carried. With that agenda in place, with a full representation and quorum from members of council, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'd also like then to begin this evening's meeting by expressing our gratitude and acknowledging the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples dating back countless generations. Personally, we are connecting today from Tillsonburg, Ontario, which is an area of significance for many Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. Tillsonburg is located on the traditional territories of Indigenous people and is covered by the Between the Lakes Treaty Number 3 of 1792. So as we gather on the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples dating back countless generations, we acknowledge the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Ottawa peoples, showing respect for the long-standing relationships that Indigenous nations have to this land as they are the original caretakers. So thank you. I have a resolution to adopt the council minutes of our previous meeting. Councillor Luciani, do you have that, please?
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Esseltine that the minutes from the regular council meeting held on August 8th, 2022 be approved.
Thank you. Questions from members of council? Any errors or omissions? Prepared to call that question. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is carried. Just before we proceed with the prepared agenda for this evening, I just wanted to, on behalf of council, and I believe appreciative community as a whole, as a nation as a whole, Commonwealth as a whole. We've had a chance this last few days to reflect upon and recognize the contributions for over 70 years by Queen Elizabeth II. And there's been much written, there's been a lot of broadcasting, and there's been so many valuable lessons that I think people that like that their entire life, there's been one majesty, you know, whether going through primary school and high school and sitting in a council chamber now. That hopefully as individuals and as a community, we've been able to get guidance from. I wanted to just share, and these are Queen Elizabeth's words as a 21-year-old on her 21st birthday. As I would quote very briefly, "I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong," unquote. As a 21-year-old, that was the message she shared to her people. And 75 years later, and the day before she passed away, she was greeting the new prime minister. I think the lady is very much satisfied what she said when she was 21 years old. So if you're able, I'd ask the members present just rise for a brief moment of reflection, quiet reflection. Stand if you're able, but certainly not having to. But thank you. Thanks very much. One final item, and also extremely important to this community and the legacy in the town of Tillsonburg, was the recent passing of former Mayor Irv Horton. And Mr. Horton, probably a teacher to many, a neighbor to a lot, a leader in this community who listened and provided great leadership, a mentor, I would suggest, to a number of people even within this chamber tonight. So on behalf of council and a community that ultimately continues to gain benefit from what he brought to Tillsonburg, we thank him, and we send again our best wishes to Cynthia, Kathy, Brock, and the entire Horton family. So thank you. We'll proceed with the agenda then as approved. And at this point in time, it's a pleasure to welcome Carrie Lewis, who's in attendance to make a presentation regarding Tillsonburg's volunteer of the Volunteer Recognition Award. I won't steal any thunder. I'll let you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I am Carrie Lewis. I'm the chair of our Cultural Heritage and Special Awards Committee. And it's my honor to be here this evening to present the quarterly award for the volunteer. I have not met Rita. Is Rita here? There she is. Hi, Rita. Yeah, I'm happy you're here. I'm happy you're able to make it, and thankful to Fran Bell for putting your name forward. It's a great honor, and our community definitely would not run without its volunteers, as everybody knows. So this was sent to me on behalf of Fran Bell, who put forth the nomination. It is an honor to nominate Rita for the Tillsonburg Volunteer Award. Rita was an employee of the Tillsonburg Library for 10 years, retiring from the library in 2015. This year, the theme for National Volunteer Week was Empathy in Action. The library chose to profile Rita as a volunteer who shows empathy in action. Since she retired, Rita has helped with the home outreach program of the library. This program provides seniors and others who have mobility issues and/or transportation issues the ability to access the library and its books without leaving their homes. Rita picks up the books from the libraries, delivers them to the patron, and returns the books to the library that the person has finished reading. Rita says, "I so enjoyed my time as an employee of the Tillsonburg Library, and hence why I wanted to volunteer when I retired. I enjoy talking with the people on outreach as well. Having this service within our library to me shows a community that cares for the disabled." Rita has been a longtime active member of St. Paul's United Church, UCW, assisting with several fundraising events, such as convening the luncheon for the Frosty Fair Bazaar over 5 times, bake sales, and co-convening the Geranium Coffee Break, along with Wilma Jeffries. She could often be found in the church kitchen, making pastries for pies, helping make cabbage rolls, assisting with banquets, funeral lunches, and wherever else she was needed. She is also a past president of Unit 6 and secretary, of the unit. As her children were growing up, Rita taught Sunday school at St. Paul's and helped in the nursery when her youngest was using it. Currently, she's an active Hickory Hills resident and sits on the social committee. Rita is also an avid bridge player. It is volunteers such as Rita who makes this community a wonderful place to live, and I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Rita. It is my honor as chair of the Cultural Heritage and Special Awards Committee to present you with the Volunteer Achievement Award.
Thank you very much. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Bag as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think so.
Rita,
Yes.
did you have anything you'd like to share? You don't have to. What? No, thank you for all you continue to do. Do you have the book?
Yes, I do have a copy of it.
Do you have a signed copy of it?
No.
And you recognize the author in the second row?
Yes.
This would be a wonderful time for the author of the book to get a pen and sign your book for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank the deputy mayor for that suggestion. Oh, you're sitting right beside him. Just prior to moving to the public meeting portion of our agenda this evening, and I was remiss in both the celebration of life for Queen Elizabeth to recognize that the flags will remain at half mast in our community until some day after the service of the 19th. The lights on the clock tower, I think as early as this evening, will then be in royal blue or blue to recognize Queen Elizabeth and her life and her passing up until the 19th. And importantly, for those members of our community who would like to make a special personal message, there is a book of condolences, and it's at the Station Arts Guild on Bridge Street, and it'll be there, and they'll welcome you and invite you to sign the book if you go there. That's on behalf of the town and of residents who choose to sign it. So thank you very much. And I was negligent just to introduce that earlier. So we'll move to the public meeting section of our agenda this evening. There are two applications for zone change. The first application is for zone change. It proposes to rezone the subject property from low density residential type 1 to special low density residential type 1 to facilitate the construction of an additional residential unit within the lower level of the existing single detached dwelling at a property known as 105 Queen Street in Tillsonburg. Mr. Gilbert, representing the planning, is here to make comment on that application. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. As noted, this is an application for zone change to permit a basement apartment within the existing single detached dwelling. The property is 0.23 acres in size. It contains an existing single detached dwelling with an approximate floor area of 1,250 square feet. The new apartment will be located in the basement of that dwelling. The town's or the official plan and the town zoning bylaw recognizes this as a converted dwelling and provides that the town may zone areas for converted dwellings to permit 2 units, as long as the proposal doesn't impact the character of the neighborhood and the applicant can provide the required off-street parking without negatively impacting the town right away. This application was circulated for comments and staff did receive a number of comments from neighboring residents expressing concerns about the parking of vehicles, congestion on Queen Street, as well as concerns with the number of dogs and the barking of dogs outside the dwelling on the subject property. And these submissions were included as attachment to the report for council's consideration. With respect to the actual unit itself, staff of the opinion that the proposal does comply with the official plan policy and the policy direction in the provincial policy statement to provide secondary suites or secondary units. There will be no changes to the exterior of the dwelling. And although currently the driveway can only fit three cars, there is lots of opportunity to widen that driveway to accommodate that 4th required spot. And that would have to be done as part of before they could submit a building permit application for that unit. Staff recommend approval in principle with bylaw being brought forward once the schedules have been prepared for the next council meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilbert. I just reminding council and sharing with the public that this is a public meeting held under the Planning Act for the purpose of hearing a zone change, in this case, zone change application ZN 2209. Robert Robinson. This process allows any person in attendance the opportunity to make a presentation to council. If anyone who appeals this decision has not provided council with oral or written submissions either at this or prior to the meeting where the decision is made, then the local planning appeal tribunal has the power to dismiss the appeal. At this point in time, I'd ask if members of council have any questions for the planner regarding the application. Councilor Luciani, please.
Through Mr. Mayor to Eric, in regards to the parking, you noted in your report that there is insufficient parking right now in the front.
Yeah, the property currently has 3 legal parking spaces, 1 in the garage and 2 in the driveway. Now, there's enough space to park another vehicle without being on the road, but it wouldn't be on private property. It would be on a portion of the road allowance.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Is the applicant or a representative of the applicant in attendance this evening like to speak to the application? Sir, welcome. Could you please come forward, give your name and your address? Just microphone's fine. Appreciate that, sir. That way it's on the record, and make your presentation, and then if councilors have questions, they'll proceed with that. So welcome.
Thank you. First of all, I believe there's 4 parking spots right in the driveway. They park 3 cars in there now, so there's more room for a fourth, I mean. So that shouldn't be an issue. But there was a complaint about a lot of cars on the street. And he took pictures, one of the complaints, and then there was about 8 cars, but one of them was his own, the guy that sent the complaint, so. So that shouldn't be an issue, I don't think, the cars. Other than that, I don't know what to say.
Have you reviewed the report, the recommendations and the conditions?
Yeah.
Are you, so you're supportive of the County of Oxford's Planning Department's recommendations?
Yeah,
So, okay.
yeah.
Very good. Questions to Mr. Robinson from members of council? Councilor Govesi, please.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Robertson. Welcome to council. I have a quick question. So you're proposing to put an apartment. What are the plans for the apartment? Do you plan on renting that out in the future once it's done?
Possibly. I need money as much as anyone else.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Robertson, you said possibly. So you're coming to council for an application to create a secondary apartment in the building, and I asked you if you're renting it out and you said possibly.
Well, I will right now. The tenants that are there now, their sister lives in the basement, so she'll pay me rent as of right now. But what happens in the future, I really can't tell you. I'm closing in on 80 now. Who knows?
If I may continue, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, through you, to Mr. Robinson. So there's already someone currently living in the basement. Is that what you're saying? And so now you officially are coming to make the application to create 2 units.
Legal, yes.
Thank you.
Further questions for the applicant from members of council? Deputy Mayor, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Robinson. I'm going to ask a question. Are you running a business out of your home property?
No, I'm not. No,
You're not?
just renting the house,
Okay. There's no other business being run out of that property,
not by me.
not by you. Would there be by someone else?
I don't know. It might be something else, but I don't know you'd call it a business.
No, I'm talking about pets.
Yeah,
There's a gallery full of people here that are quite concerned that maybe there's an illegal operation of
no,
pets.
there's not an illegal operation, no.
Right. And you've got that confirmed with our bylaw department at the town of Tillsonburg.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
as far as I know.
Thank you for your answer.
Anything further from members of council? We are just, the only question I have, and I appreciate the fellow members, their questions. Is we are in a planning, this is a planning meeting. We're dealing with the Planning Act in the province of Ontario. But Deputy Mayor raises, I think, a historically significant question that, you know, it's not, there's merit. But my question to you is, do you have an understanding that by asking for and applying for an amendment to the zoning, you are actually asking for something that's different than what is already and currently there? That's why they call it a zone change.
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay, that's good. I just, so it's an ask. That's all. Okay, thank you. I think that's it.
Perfect. Thank
Well
you.
done. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of the application? I'd also ask if there's anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in opposition to the application or has any general questions thereof. Yes, sir. Yeah, please come forward, and the same message to anyone else who either during this or subsequent planning application, this name, address, and then good to go.
Okay,
Welcome.
thank you. Councilors, Mayor. Deb and Dave Metzler, we live at 103 Queen Street, Tillsonburg. I'm gonna keep this simple, okay? To clarify, the tenants have applied and paid for the special zoning application of this residence and not the owner. The owner has told us he would not be receiving two rental incomes from this residence. The owner has told us he would not keep this as a two-residence home in the future. So the question is that since this doesn't increase the number of rental units, as the same tenants will be living in the same capacity as the last 6 years when the third tenant moved in, what is the point and purpose of this application? This would mean the owner would have to pay more property tax without getting any extra rental income from the second unit. Why would he do this? If council does pass the zoning change, our question is there a timeline to bring all the renovations and inspections to building code? Until the work is completed and inspected, is the residence still considered a single residence home?
Thank you very much to the both of you, and for your service as well. Are there questions from members of council? No, and the fact that your information, both in your early, which was on the agenda, and your presentation tonight does protect your position relative to any appeals and other things. So it's just informational
Yes.
for that benefit.
And the reason that we have the question about will it remain a single residence until all the renovations and inspections are done, then that would bylaw would be able to step in and make sure that there was only 3 adult dogs in the residence and not the 9, 10, 11 that I have seen there.
Yeah, I'm referencing back that it's a planning meeting,
Yep.
but I'm also going to, when someone is looking for something, being respectful of neighbors, municipal bylaws, I'm saying this generically, kind of carries some weight. And the planning can be black and white. Working inside your neighborhood and your community is also has value. So, I don't know the current status of any referenced, but bylaw enforcement, I know are acutely aware of and remain engaged in that, in the aspect of on-site breeding for.
Thank you very much for your time.
Is there anyone else in attendance tonight that has any general questions regarding the application or has concerns? Seeing none, I will turn to the resolution that's attached to the application. Councillor Parker, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gilvazy, the council of the town of Tillsonburg approve in principle the zone change application submitted by Robert Robertson, whereby the lands described as lot 493, plan 500 in the town of Tillsonburg, known municipally as 105 Queen Street, are to be rezoned from low density residential type 1 zone R1 to low density residential type 1 converted dwelling zone to facilitate the development of a converted dwelling. And I'd like to speak to that,
Yep,
Mr. Mayor.
you lead off, sir.
First off, just because I read the resolution doesn't mean that I'm in favor of it. I have some concerns that this residential unit was already created without the creation of bylaw or without the proper building. The people are already all living in the house. So just for that reason, I will not be supporting the resolution. Thank you.
Resolutions on the floor. Are there any further questions, comments from members of council? Oh, Councillor Luciani, please.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just a couple comments. Recognizing that, yes, this is a planning meeting and yes, looking at what's there and how it's laid out, I agree that, you know, this has been in existence up to this point, or at least there's been somebody living there. But the fact is, this is a planning meeting, and I do sympathize totally with the neighbors as far as if there is issues with dogs. But again, that's a bylaw issue, and issues with parking. That again is a key concern of mine, especially when there's a fire hall so close and an EMS so close. So I mean, that might be something that can be resolved later on with. I mean, if you look at Lisgrave, for instance, there's parking on one side. It could be the same thing with Queen
Yeah,
Street.
right.
But the reality is it is a planning meeting, and I think it went to the Ontario Land Tribunal after this. It would likely be upheld because it does meet all the criteria for what's required to be passed. So thank you.
Further questions from members of council? And we're prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is defeated. 2-5. It's 2-5. The public meeting's over, but I think would be certainly if I'm going to give with the consensus of council, because I don't have invite if you're part of the applicant, which had the opportunity to speak, but just very briefly, ma'am, then.
Okay, but this was presented wrong. The person that lives downstairs at this time is my sister. She has a bedroom and a sitting room down there at this time. She eats her meals with us. We cook our meals together. The purpose was to make it a separate dwelling so that we could live separately. That's just what
Okay.
I want.
Well, then the only thing, no, that's fine. There are procedures and processes, and even reconsiderations. You've heard different opinions, even from different counselors. So if you remain committed to the additional information that was not provided when you had the information, or the applicant had nope, this is not going to be a discussion. I'm just sharing some experience that I have on options that are available to you that you may want to consider that are still available. And that would be reconnecting with the planning department and looking at ensuring that all factual information was indeed presented to council, and that if council had an opportunity for any reconsideration in the future, that would be another public meeting. So I offer that with best intent and quite extensive experience. That's all I can do right now. But thank you both for your attendance. As we advance to the second application this evening, this is an application for zone change to provide for the physiotherapy business as a home occupation with 3 employees in an existing detached accessory building by Alex and Kayla Fick. And the property is located at 14 Tilson Ave in Tillsonburg, and Mr. Gilbert's back to make another presentation on zone change.
Thank you. This property is zoned R1, which does permit home occupation. However, home occupations aren't to have any employees who reside outside of the home. And home occupations are supposed to be carried in within the existing dwelling, subject to 260 square feet. In this case, the applicant proposes 3 other employees besides the residents of the dwelling. And they want to use the existing detached building, which has been used for business purposes in the past. So staff have reviewed the request and are supportive of the request, as it still will maintain the general nature of the home occupation provisions. They can provide all required parking on site, and the 3 employees are not anticipated to create any negative impacts, especially given that Tilson is a arterial road. So with that, staff recommend approval in principle. Again, should council give favorable consideration, the bylaw will be brought forward to the next meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilbert. Are there questions for the planner from members of council? Seeing none, is the applicant or an agent for the applicant in attendance? And would you like to come forward, sir, and support? More than a wave, just if you're satisfied with the terms and conditions, recognize that, and I'm sure the planner's already aware of that. Anyway, and thank you for, well, let's go through the planning process. Questions for members of council to the applicant at all? Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak in favor of the application? I'd also like to ask, is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak in opposition to the application or has any general questions regarding the same? We'll move to the review through resolution. And recognize that there actually was communication from a Gerald and Patricia Sandom of Hyman Street, geographically located around the corner, in support. So that's be on the record as well. Deputy Mayor, you have a resolution.
I do, sir. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Esseltine, that the council of the town of Tillsonburg approve in principle the zone change application submitted by Alex and Kayla Fick, whereby the lands described as lot 1290, plan 500 in the town of Tillsonburg, known municipally as 14 Tilson Avenue, are to be rezoned from low density type 1 zone R1 to special low density residential type 1 zone R1 special, to permit a physiotherapy business as a home occupation with 3 employees within an existing detached accessory building.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Discussion to the resolution from members of council, please. Seeing none, prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution's been carried. The bylaw to support that will be prepared and come back to the next meeting of this council of the 26th of September. So congratulations, good luck, and most importantly, thank you for your faith in our community, and welcome to Tillsonburg with both your business and your residents. So thank you. There are no further planning reports on our agenda this evening. We will move to delegations. It's a pleasure at this point on behalf of other members, both in the council chamber and throughout the community, to welcome Heather Thomas, who will make a presentation on behalf of the concerns at the dog park in our community. So welcome, Heather.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to have the delegation here tonight. I do have a presentation. Is that gonna come?
Yeah.
Okay,
So are you all synced up with? Okay,
thank you.
very good.
My name's Heather Thomas, as mentioned, and I'm a dog owner who frequents the Dave Johnson Memorial Dog Park. I've met a lot of like-minded dog owners over the past 2 years since adopting my dog Maggie, and we've recently collaborated on a list of concerns related to the safety of the dog park, and we wish to present them to you tonight. Full disclosure, I do not reside in Tillsonburg. I'm nearby in Southwest Oxford and Mount Elgin. But that said, I do the majority of my business here in Tillsonburg, like banking, shopping, car maintenance, recreational activities. and healthcare. And I've taken a lead role in this campaign because I do have the skill set and passion to do so. I've also received significant support from a number of dog owners. Many of them are here tonight who do reside in Tillsonburg. And so I'd like to thank them for their support tonight. Next slide, please. So we're a group of concerned dog owners who use the dog park on a regular basis. Many of us take the time while we're at the dog park to keep it safe and clean by removing garbage that's on the grounds, picking up dog waste that others have left behind, removing weeds with burrs, installing a lost and found mailbox, and replacing stones at the main water spigot with a large patio stone. In addition, 2 of the dog owners purchased solar lights. One dog owner negotiated with Rona to get those to have two posts on which those solar lights would be placed, and also arranged with Parks and Recreation here in Tillsonburg to dig holes and install the posts with the solar lights attached. Dog owners have also purchased the metal dog bowls in both the large and the small dog parks, the patio stone and the mailbox. And we do have concerns about safety issues for the dogs and the humans using the dog park, which I'll talk to now. So the next slide, please. So here's just a basic list of concerns that I'll speak about. Next slide, please. We see limited and infrequent maintenance of the dog park. There have been countless times we've had to call township offices to remind staff to refill the dog waste bags, add wood chips, or cut the weeds back on the property. It seems as though the dog park is an afterthought for regular park maintenance, and we're not sure why that is, given that it's the responsibility of the town of Tillsonburg. In other jurisdictions, like Ingersoll on the left and London, the dog parks are closed regularly for maintenance. As such, these dog parks are very clean and have sufficient ground cover, which keeps the dogs cleaner, safer, and gives them the ability to have more fun in a safer environment. Next slide, please. The weeds were so high on Labor Day weekend that when I walked through the park, my new shoes were covered in pollen, and we don't really find this acceptable. Next slide, please. The lighting situation is our biggest concern here. We recently saw a posting on Facebook congratulating the Tillsonburg Parks and Recreation Department, Tillsonburg Hydro, other donors and sponsors for the addition of hydro at the Optimus Ballparks Diamonds. While recreation for humans is very important and hydro is obviously a necessary feature while at the ballparks, we would argue that for the safety and recreation purposes, it's equally important at the local dog park. There have been occasions when rambunctious dogs, when happily playing with each other, have run into trees, picnic tables, fences, and even people, simply because they cannot see these obstacles in the dark. Equally concerning is the inability of dog owners to see who is coming and going in and around the park. This is a significant safety concern. We should not have to rely on light-up dog collars in order to identify or see our dogs at the dog park. What is most interesting is that in 2018, at a meeting of the Dog Park Advisory Committee, it was noted that Thompson Electric agreed to provide lighting for the dog park free of charge. Why is it the town of Tillsonburg satisfied with the very dim solar lights that barely light up only a small portion of the parking lot and only are activated with motion directly underneath the light? Proper lighting is what is needed, especially in the dog park area itself. Next slide, please. Wood chips seem to be the town's preferred ground cover for the dog park, even though the dog park originally had grass all over it when it first opened. We can see a large pile of wood chips located on the west side of the parking lot of the dog park. If wood chips are going to be the ground covered used at the dog park, we need to have them replaced much more frequently. We see there is a desperate need for regular replacement of wood chips at the dog park, yet for months it seems as though this park is neglected when resources are so close by to amend the area. Additionally, when wood chips are added to the park, it seems as though the main areas requiring remediation are avoided for some reason. This creates areas of dirt or mud when it rains or snows in significant sections of the park. Is regular maintenance of the dog park a task that Parks and Recreation staff are unable to complete? We feel that the funds garnered from local dog license fees could be earmarked to assist in the maintenance of this town property. Wood chips, however, are not ideal for a number of reasons. Wood chips get damp quickly. Small chunks of wood absorb moisture, which can create a muddy mess over time. As per Aspergillus fumigatus is a fungus that thrives in damp bark and wood chips. When ingested or inhaled, the fungus is poisonous to dogs and has the potential to cause serious liver damage. Some types of wood chips are treated with chemicals. Chemical-treated wood chips are hazardous if ingested. When dry, wood chips can be brittle and prone to splintering. If a chip splinters in a dog's mouth, it can cause tooth and gum injury. This can be painful and it can lead to infection. Oral injuries can inhibit a dog's ability to eat, which might lead to weight loss, lethargy, and in severe cases, malnutrition. Additionally, sharp pieces of wood can pierce the pads of a dog's foot and cause foot injuries. Next slide, please. Throughout the dog park, there are numerous weeds that have burrs on them. This poses another safety issue when dogs get burrs embedded in the fur around their paws or their face. Here are some pictures of what one dog shoveled up in the middle there, a full garbage can full and discarded late August to prevent further injury to her dog and others. Of note, when these weeds were removed, the soil beneath was not sand, but actually regular dirt. This shows that grass could be grown on it. Additionally, on a recent trip to Florida, where the soil is very sandy, if not completely sand, I noticed that grass grows very well. I did a bit of research when I got back, and the type of grass grown there is also available in Canada. It's called centipede grass, and there's a picture of it in the lower right-hand corner. The centipede grass variety establishes as a dense, slow-growing lawn that thrives in sunny and lightly shaded areas. This uniform, weed-resistant grass requires little mowing and is easy to maintain. Tolerant of extreme heat and cold, it is well-adapted lawn from the southern coast to the upper transition zone. I sourced this centipede grass, and 5 pounds are available in bags through walmart.ca for roughly $100, which is on sale regularly $120. Each 5-pound bag will cover up to 2,000 square foot. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, can you just go one more forward? There we go. And then we'll go back in a minute. The area in the large dog park is about 8,400 square feet. The area in the small dog park is mapped out here is about 5,566 square feet. Combined, this is just shy of 14,000 square feet. One 5-pound bag of centipede grass could cover both dog park areas. Actually, 5-pound bags of centipede grass could cover both 5 dog park areas. I would suggest using the seed for only the larger dog park area, which has far less grass currently. If that is done, there's nearly enough applications for 2.5 times to seed this area. So for $100 plus shipping, $500 plus shipping, this is an economical solution. If you could go back one slide, please. Grass is the preferred ground cover over wood chips. And from left to right, you'll see my dog had the London Dog Park, Pottersburg Off-Leash Dog Park. There's Kettle Creek Dog Park in St. Thomas in the middle, all grass. And on the right is Okotoks Dog Park in Alberta. As mentioned earlier, centipede grass establishes as a dense, slow-growing lawn that thrives in these sunny or slightly shaded areas. And so I think that it might be something to investigate. Next slide, please. Or 2 more, actually. There we go. In the winter months, the latches on most of the gates into and out of the dog park become damaged. As a result, some of the gates become stuck and do not latch. The ice buildup under the bottom of the gates prevents them from closing properly. This too is a hazard because the area should be completely enclosed for the safety of the dogs in the park. A better latch system that works in all types of weather would be most appreciated. This past winter, we had to rely on bungee cords, again, provided by one of the dog park owners, to close the gates properly. This is not acceptable. We also would like some sort of proper ground cover at the entrance to the dog park to prevent it from building up ice. And that would also assist with the latching of the gates so they don't get damaged. Next slide, please. We are currently researching different options of dog gate latches, and have observed that other dog parks, there are some here that we found at other dog parks, and we can certainly send along some more if we do some more research. On this page are example from Okotoks, Alberta, as well as Thamesford, Ontario. The Okotoks has a Y-shaped closure that simply goes around the adjacent post to close the gate securely, and the Thamesford is a simple latch. Next slide, please. Here's a clearer picture of the Okotoks latch system. Next slide. And a closer shot of the Thamesford Dog Park latching system. It's a simple pin latching system that's easy to use and closes the gate very securely. Additionally, many of these gate entries have gravel stones or outdoor carpeting or other flooring that's down and does not impede the gate in the winter and acts as a means of keeping the area less slippery. Something like this should be considered for the Tillsonburg Dog Park as well. Next slide, please. Also, in the winter months and other times of year when the weather is inclement, it would be very much appreciated to have a lean-to or some sort of gazebo installed to protect dog owners against the wind, snow, and rain. Regardless of the weather, responsible dog owners need to exercise their dogs. We believe this structure was approved last year, but there seemed to be some sort of challenge of getting a team to install it at the dog park. When will the gazebo be erected, and will it happen before the winter months? On this slide, we see a couple of examples of simple lean-tos. The circled item on the left is found at Kettle Creek Dog Park in St. Thomas, and the other one is just something I found online. Next slide, please. A one-time $5,000 or $6,000 budget cannot cover the annual budget for proper maintenance of this park. It's certainly not sustainable, and it's not enough. Next slide, please. It's easy to provide a lot of problems without thinking about solutions, but we took some time to think about what would be some considerations for solutions. It would be helpful if whoever is elected or assigned to the dog park committee have better engagement with the people who actually use the dog park. It's preferable that all members of the advisory committee also have dogs and that use the dog park as well. It's difficult to really know what's going on at the dog park if you're not there on a regular basis to see the issues. It might be a good time to review the membership of the dog park committee and seek input from new members. The terms of reference are not available online because of a broken link. Perhaps there might be interest in people in the community who currently use the dog park to participate in this capacity. Lighting is certainly an issue. For the safety of dogs and their owners, lighting must be improved as soon as possible, especially since it was offered free of charge. We would like to request town to investigate the implementation of proper lighting to the dog park. Solar lighting is a poor option that does not cast light sufficiently for safety. Grass would be ideal. Can council look into this grass option that I suggested, or even the spray grass option? Can we throw down even some crabgrass seed to see if it will take? Can regular seeding on the existing space start happening as a regular maintenance item now? Grass is just simply superior to wood chips. Improved latching systems need to be investigated further, and we'd like to request staff to support and determine a better latching system for the dog park that never fails, even in the wintertime. We also would like to see the lean-to installed as soon as possible as promised. Next slide, please. We are eager to develop a positive working relationship with Mr. Luciani or other replacements and members of the dog park committee. We look forward to hearing from council and the mayor now as to what is possible immediately, midterm, and for long-term planning related to the dog park. We would also like to have a better understanding of the maintenance schedule for the dog park to see if we can have input on maintenance ideas as well. Transparency really is necessary. Next slide, please. We would like council and town staff to immediately consider the offers presented in our letter, including the installation of the lighting and lean-to, looking at the grass, the latch replacement, and a maintenance schedule. Next slide, please. You've heard what's important to us. Our question is, what is important to you? We feel that the Dave Johnson Memorial Dog Park is a positive place where people and their dogs can socialize and exercise. We were happy to have this space provided by the town of Tillsonburg. Our disappointment is that this park does not seem to get the same attention or upkeep as other parks in town. If this park is part of the Parks and Recreation's responsibility for regular maintenance and beautification, why is it not receiving the attention it deserves? It is not important to you, council members. What is the commitment to make this park equal in terms of other parks in town? The dog park is used every day of every month of every year. And I would question if other parks get as much use as this dog park. We also believe that this dog park could be a destination location for people visiting Tillsonburg to drop their, with their dogs, either when on their vacation or just driving through, or attending a ball game or a hockey game. It deserves the same priority as other parks in this town. And wouldn't it be great if other people from outside town thought that this park was just as good as theirs at home? Next question, next slide, please. Thank you for your time tonight. And I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you very much, Heather. What we have is the delegation, so we'll separate the delegation portion from the resolution, which will come up momentarily.
Okay.
So at this point in time, to members of council, I'd encourage any questions they may have to the presenter this evening. Councillor Parker, please.
Through you, Mayor Molnar, to Ms. Thomas. First off, thank you for coming and presenting your concerns. I know I've been over at the dog park in the past and helped Ange with getting the posts or locations for the posts for the lights that you guys put up. I do share some of your concerns for sure, especially the removal of the grass that originally happened to go to the wood chips. There's also, when wood chips get dumped over there, there's also foreign objects that get put in there. There's being glass, stones, rocks, stuff like that. So I do have that, and as well as some of the picnic tables and stuff, they are hazards for some of the dogs over there. However, one of the comments that you made was you saw a post about lighting at one of the ball diamonds as well. That lighting was actually donated. The only thing that was put forward was staff time from the town. Tillsonburg Minor Ball actually took it upon themselves and did the fundraising for that. So that's one of the things I wanted to clarify. But I do agree with you, and I think that there are improvements that need to be made. One question I did have is, what other dog parks in the area actually have lights? Because I've traveled to St. Thomas, London, Ingersoll. I don't see lights. So I think that's the one question that needs to be answered is, this seems like a very big wish list, but what other area actually has lights in their dog park?
That's a good question. I might defer to some of my colleagues if they know. And it's certainly something I can investigate and get back to you with Mr. Parker. I think it's important to recognize that this park is used after hours, after it does get dark, and certainly it's getting a lot darker earlier, even now. People work shift work and need to exercise their dogs. And so even it doesn't really matter what's happening outside of this area. If we can set the example and be a leader and provide lighting for dog park in Tillsonburg, perhaps others would follow suit.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I was an avid user of the dog park in town till there was an incident. So I have been over there. I know what it is.
Mhm.
I guess one of the other things is just I know that you guys want to be leaders and want that kind of stuff, but at the same time, we also have to look at the amount of money that gets, like, so an example of for ball users and stuff like that, they pay user fees to use the diamonds, and that's why there's a lot of attention that's put towards them. I know that there's dog tags, that's for other reasons and tracking, but that's one of the concerns that I have with it is there's no real area to put more money into it. Like, we don't have a revenue stream where we do with some of the other groups. That's one of the concerns that I have. I'm not saying that I don't want to see it, because it would be awesome to have lights over there, but that's one of the big things that I see that's a difference. So thank you.
Could I respond to that?
The councils are asking questions. If it's for clarity, then please do.
In terms of the, oh, now I lost my train of thought.
You take your time.
In terms of the budget, I I'm just wondering if the dog park is separate from the other parks and recreation? Or is it part of it? Because other parks would be, you know, have mowing done and have maintenance done on a regular basis. And the dog park doesn't seem to have regularly maintained until we typically call.
And I think you've addressed that very well. It is part of an overall comprehensive recreation, culture and parks budget. Others, when we get to the resolution, or maybe in a position to pick up on some of the structural and financial aspects of that. But I would suggest that I'd be encouraged by the draft resolution. And not speaking to immediacy, but ultimately, here I'm getting ahead of my fellow councilors, value in your presentation. I'll make a comment upon conclusion, which I usually try to not jump in. So I think your message, and importantly, the message on behalf of all of the users. I was going to say it's not a rough sell. It's a positive thing. So just for a moment.
Okay.
Further questions from members of council? Councilor Rosehart, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the speaker. When the dog park was talked about for many, many years, and Council Esseltine and myself went to all the meetings when all this started. And when the people came to us, they said, just give us the land. We will maintain it. We will fundraise for it. We will do everything. It will be no cost to the taxpayer. I understand where you're coming from, that parks are looked after and everything like that. But at the same token, I think we need a little bit from the people as well to contribute and do fundraising. Now, I don't know if there's any money sitting out there now. Does anybody know if there is? Is there already money been fund? Maybe I should.
The pooch plunge would just happen the other day. It was $5 per dog and all of the proceeds were to go to the dog park. I don't know where that money, I don't know how to get that money or what the process would be for that. If it goes through the dog park advisory committee and then I'm not sure what the process is.
Just to follow up, Mr. Mayor, I think there was fundraising done and there was money already sitting in the budget somewhere.
All I was told, Mr. Luciani,
Okay, do you know the answer to the question?
$5,000.
Money sitting where it is?
$5,000 was spent on a gazebo.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was the total amount or not.
No, I'm trying to be fair to you. Can you hold on to that question? And when the resolution gets to the floor, I'll turn to you first. Because that is an answerable question, but it's not really fair to a delegate to ask, not fair, but I meant we have, knowledge and experience to answer some of the questions. Is there anything else for the presenter? I'm gonna go around the horn, so I'll go Councillor Govesi, then Councillor Luciani, and Councillor Esseltine.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Other parks that firstly, thank you for your presentation. I do agree. I've went to visit the dog park and at times it's very unsightly and the weeds are, 3 feet long around the edge. So I agree with you. I've also been to dog parks like in Toronto with my daughter and it's all grassed and a very different atmosphere. So I do have some good news that we were informed that there's going to be some tree planting on September 21st, which is National Tree Day. And our director of Parks and Rec just informed us of that, and they're looking for volunteers from 10 to 12. So anyways, that's good news. So we can get some.
10, 12, right? From 10 a.m. to 12.
Yeah.
We're not limiting it to children 10 to 12, that's my point.
No, I meant from 10
I know,
a.m.
you
to
got
12.
it. Sorry.
Okay. So that's good news. There will be some shade cover. I think Councillor Parker did make a good point that needs to resonate with everyone, that other user groups do pay fees. There's expensive tournament fees and club fees that help maintain this. And the dog part is different in this aspect. But obviously, safety always has to be number one on council's mind. So, I mean, recognizing that there are safety concerns both for pets and for owners is something that definitely should be discussed and looked at in the future. Thank you. Lori, I did have one question through you, Mr. Mayor. So the dog parks that have grass though, how do they maintain the grass? Like, is it watered? I'm familiar with the centipede grass that you're talking about from Florida. I don't believe that grass will grow here. It's not drought tolerant, and it's also not that cold tolerant. Like, it may stay green for a while, but eventually will die off. I don't think it'll grow here, but there's other types of grass that will. But in other dog parks where there's grass, do they water it? Like, how do they keep the ground cover? Does anyone know?
To my knowledge, it's not watered. However, these dog parks often will have both ground cover of grass as well as wood chips. So the wood chips are maintained. And so the grass doesn't get torn up as much because there's also wood chips as well. So I'm not saying that the grass is growing through the wood chips. There's just different sections where it is. Some of those dog parks are larger. I will say that. So, when you have a smaller dog park with more concentration of dogs, that becomes problematic. However, I think that there are some creative solutions that we can come up with. And even if the wood chips are going to be maintained as the ground cover of choice, that's fine. They just need to be replaced on a much more regular basis.
Thank you.
Counselor Luciani, then Counselor Esseltine, please.
Through Mr. Mayor, just a couple comments and maybe a few clarifications. First, in regard to Councilor Rosehart's question, as far as whether there's any funds, as far as previous fundraising, there was a small pocket of funds that were raised when the dog park was first being initiated. That went towards solar lighting on the posts that are all out there. So all the fundraising on that was basically spent and used. And then there was personal funds of mine that went into had to augment it to make sure we had enough. So there is no funds from previous fundraising. So I'll just leave it at that for now. We do get some money from dog tags and the late fees, but nothing from the total dog tag. I mean, that goes towards animal control and a bunch of other stuff. In regard to the ground cover, there was never an intent to remove grass from this dog park. This dog park started as grass when it first went in. The problem is, and as you related to Heather, is that it is a small dog park, and the problem is we've got quite a few dogs in there, and they tend to really run around. And what's happened with the grass is obviously that the dogs have chewed it up. And then we had no choice when it got down into sand and into mud to start putting in more chips. Now, we did meet as a group, myself, and the chair of the dog park committee did meet with you, and we had a pretty good conversation that lasted a couple hours, if I recall. And we did go through some of this, but the next day we did meet again, myself, Katie Benkel, the chair of the dog park committee, and Matt Johnson, as far as some of the issues that were brought up that night. Since then, there has been additional trees planted. I know there's been additional mulch put in. And it was also pointed out to me that, and unbeknownst to me, because my understanding with the mulch was that it was going to be spare mulch that's going to be coming from any of our tree cutting operations. The reality of what went in there, you really can't complain about the mulch because it's actually park grade mulch that's made for underneath play sets. It's made for kids to be barefoot on. So it shouldn't be a problem for the dogs. I don't disagree that there needs to be more and that it's not maybe hitting all the areas, but I just wanted to bring that up. And then on my last point is going to be is that the dog park committee is meeting tomorrow night at 7:30, and it's going to try to be at the dog park. Barring that, with rain, it'll be at the pavilion nearby, and it's a public meeting, so anybody who's got information or wants to come forward and put ideas, that's a great spot to do it. And I'll leave it at that.
Counselor Esseltine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenter. So Councillor Luciani's, for the most part, covered what I was going to say, but about involvement in the Park Committee. If the terms of reference aren't on the town's website, they should be, but I did look there and there was information about the Dog Park Committee. And anyone is welcome to put their name forward now with the change in council coming up in October. That will also be a time to change committees and certainly anyone who's interested, because you have to give the Dog Park Committee credit for the work that they do. And they're always looking for energetic people who would like to help. All the town committees are. So I was just going to say you people have looked at this up, down and sideways and have a lot of ideas about what would work. So it would be good to take them to council through the committee and that would be a positive thing. Thank you.
That's all I'll take a run at. Yeah,
All
go
right.
ahead.
I'll take a little turn at this too. My concern is mostly with the finances of this thing. And I'm looking at my screen here that says 5,000 is not enough, and you're absolutely correct. It's not enough. But as Councillor Rosehart said earlier, as this project became of age, the town was to provide the land, and now parks are looking after it, and there's an involvement here. So I'm just gonna cut right to the chase. You have a group of people here and many more who are quite compassionate about their pets. If your group were to come and partner for, like Councillor Parker said, a user group, not do all the funding, let the committee work with you on the funding, but not all from the taxpayer either. What if you were to have a draw? What if you were to have a dance? What if you were to have a sponsorship of a pet food company that would like to put a sign on the fence, or someone that would like to for whatever reason? These are all things that can be discussed with the committee and brought back to council as what we'll call it a partnership, as there is with minor sports. And the splash pad, for example, there were a group of moms got together and raised a considerable amount of money for the splash pad. And it was all very helpful to work in unison with the town, with council, with the committees to get this done. So those are my comments that, if your group were to get to, and I'm not saying charge a user fee or anything like that, but if you just have some compassion to get together, have a dance or have a draw. And it's all helpful to work with the committee to get things done in a very positive and very friendly manner where everybody wins.
I have a question about.
If I can answer it, if not, someone might.
So I'm originally
Yeah, through the chair.
through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Beers. I'm from London originally, and granted, it's a larger town, a larger city. I'm not aware of fundraising being required for public parks that are under the jurisdiction of the city or the town. Is this something that happens in smaller communities of this nature? Like, why does that happen here?
I'm fine.
If I could.
Well,
respond,
okay,
would you
please.
go? No, you go ahead.
Go ahead, but I think Councillor Rosehart actually hit the town has this community, and others can jump in, but to your particular question, I don't know of any other community that has the depth and passion of members of our community as residents, as service clubs, as industrialists, and commercial partners that raise more money to create greater opportunity for all of our citizens and families. The dog park was something that it's an initiation, as Councillor Rosehart most accurately has actually indicated, let's get it moving, and this is what was available, and it was about a group of individuals, not part of an overall, advanced corporate business plan. That's not trying to sound technical. It was, so Councillor Rosehart saying that, it wasn't, it's like, here's the land, put up the fencing and all this other, that's kind of phase one of the dog park. And then, so I'm going to suggest this is the next, how do we actually get from where we've come from to how do we advance it? And now I'm going to step over comments that I was wanting to make. So I'm going to go back to Deputy Mayor, and then hopefully we can get to the resolution.
Well, maybe to answer your question directly, partnerships are good here. Partnerships with business, with service clubs. Service clubs are front and center when it comes to things like this. Approach the service club and say, can we have some assistance in this sort of thing? Everybody works together in the community, rather than to just go to the taxpayer and say, look for it. And no matter how small amount it is, it just shows good faith that we're all partners in this for the better good of the cause that's going to come out. Hope that answers your question.
Anything further from members of council? Did you have any brief summary comments to conclude the delegation portion of this?
No, I think that my presentation.
Okay, well, actually, you and the others here tonight and some other names that were on the list, I think there's a draft resolution coming up, but if I don't have questions, but I do want to make a couple summary comments because first of all, I have not been there as a participant with our dogs. I don't want to. Dogs is the other 50% of my life, quite frankly, relative to my wife. But there's obvious concerns that need addressed. I'm going to suggest there's some dialogue that needs to be enhanced. And I would be like others that I think you're yes, maybe yes. Like it's not, we need to have accurate and factual information as well. Not suggesting that's not all, I'm saying that that's how then the next stage of, working towards a resolution actually comes together. The one thing I really do want to highlight though, is when we get to the pages that said possible solutions. And that to me is living a life or in a fishbowl where there's a lot of, there's complaints from time to time. And I said, the best complaint is the one followed with a solution or an idea on how to make it an opportunity. And that's what I see here. And if I'm going to make any final personal observation, it's not a dog park. The minute this town honored someone and put their name on the dog park, our responsibility goes up exponentially. Now, that's not part of where it actually, the next stage is, but that's something I mean with relative to any, and I'm sure on behalf of others. So we have an absolute obligation that goes beyond a dog park. And I know I'm not minimalizing the value of the dog park, but there's a name on the dog park that also needs to be respected. So those are the final comments. I believe Councillor Parker has a draft resolution to introduce.
I do. I'm going to read something that differed from the original motion, but the one that's on the script. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gilvazzi, that council received correspondence from Heather Thomas regarding Dave Johnson Memorial Dog Park concerns as information, and that funding for improvements and upgrades at the Dave Johnson Memorial Dog Park be added to the 2023 budget for council consideration.
Thank you very much, Councillor Parker. Discussion, well thought out, or, oh, sorry, I shouldn't be prejudicing the before Councillor Gilvazzi, please.
Just a comment. I did actually just Google the terms of reference for the dog park, so maybe the clerk could take a note. It does not work. It says entry not found.
Okay, but thank you, and thank you, Councillor Esseltine as well. To the resolution, are there any questions or comments from members of council? Appreciate Councillor Parker at that phase of the year, but I think it's also appropriate. And my only summary comment and my support of the resolution is that I wanted to thank the members of the Dog Park Advisory Committee. See, they're advisory, they're volunteers. They're doing the same thing that our accessibility advisory people are doing and bringing, better value and benefits to all our residents and transits and economic development. And they have a passion for animals, for pets in this dog park. The ultimate decisions in a business plan and budget end here. So that's, that can be the target, but not, please, the volunteers, the men, the ladies, the families that are on our advisory committee. So supporting the resolution, thank the councillor for that. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, we'll call that question. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution's carried. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
And waiting patiently with his hand. No, not his hand up. the great moderator. It's a pleasure to welcome back to these chambers, Tillsonburg's kind of unofficial historian in a way, Matthew Schultz. I believe Matt's here tonight to reflect upon town street naming policy. So welcome, Mr. Schultz. Oh, safe evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council and staff. You're probably waiting for the joke, right? And it is this. If at first you don't succeed, I do not recommend skydiving for you. So the street naming policy, it allows for 2 names on a street sign. Shakespeare would put it, it's more honored in a breach than the observance. There are only 2 streets in town that I'm aware of that have 2 names, John Pound and Jean Ferry. There's Jean Ferry, but there's Armstrong Street. Should that be John Armstrong? There's the Balaz Court. Is that Andy Balaz, a former mayor of Tillsonburg? Basically, why were they omitted? It's an honor to name someone for a street name, but you need to put the whole works in. When I see Jean Ferry, I think of Jean Ferry. She is still alive, at least to me, because I see both names. But the rest of them, they could be just anybody. So what I'm asking town council for is to direct staff that if you're going to name somebody, name the street after somebody, make it the whole name. In this particular case, you know, I would like to see someday Johnny Cowell being recognized. He is the most internationally known native of Tillsonburg. I don't want to see Cowell Avenue. I would like to see Johnny Cowell Avenue. In this particular case, half a loaf is not better than a whole loaf. And while I'm on talking about that, last night my bakery burned down, my business is toast. I don't know, I don't have any questions.
No,
That's
actually, well, just very quickly, are there questions for Schultz? Excuse me, Matt Schultz? No, you raise a very, I'd suggest, poignant and sometimes a timeless thing that you don't think of. Now, maybe we're a generation, I know what Armstrong means and what Balaz, I've been sharing stories of Mr. Balaz to me as a neighbor, but you know, relative to you know, certain anniversaries and things that, you know, he was kind of the leader of the community when they were transpiring. You're right. People live on Balaz Court, probably don't know, you know, that just over your left shoulder, there he is. So I would entertain, you know, any comments, or it's being received potentially as information, but is there any additional meat or? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just gonna make a comment. The city of Las Vegas has Dean Martin Drive. And if it had Martin Drive, what would that mean? So I concur with you that those sorts of things are very, very important. And we do have people on our famous wall inside the entrance of the community center with names. And I can completely agree with you. And I think maybe we should go one step further when we're looking at a new subdivision. It might be a subdivision to honor those people who have given history to the town in a 2-name street fan. What are they called? Fans? Street fans, blades, street blades. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Thanks for coming out and bringing that to our attention.
Anything further? Then there's a resolution, and I believe Councillor Rosehart, you have that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Luciani that council received the presentation by Matthew Schultz as information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Think for Councillor Gavasi, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually would request that maybe there be an amendment to that motion. And I would like to add a line and that Okay, I'll do that then. Counselor Parker will second it. So moved by myself, seconded by Counselor Parker. And a second line would read, and that council with regards to future street naming, take into consideration full name, street names.
To understand it's an amendment to the resolution. Does all of council understand the text of that? Are there any questions regarding that? All those in favor? Is there a question, Councillor? I'm going to suggest that it's the intent and that this will at least get it a little more mileage, and that somewhere both the development, the chief building official, and the people that actually that runs through will have some information to kind of bring back a little more detail, I would suggest.
Excuse me, just to clarify, I put full name, so I didn't say two names. I put
Okay.
full name.
I did hear that. I was just wondering though, if someone has 3 names, we're getting a very long street
Oh, right.
sign. Like, there's probably a limit to how many letters you can fit on a street sign.
What's your middle name? Or would you use your, okay.
I just,
Anyways, are there further questions for members of council regarding the amendment to the resolution? And we'll call that vote. All those in favor? It's carried. Now, might be easier for Councillor Govesi because you've got that text. But read it as Councillor Rosehart, seconded by Councillor Luciani. We've now added that onto the original resolution.
Okay. Moved by myself, seconded by Counselor Parker, that council received the presentation by Matthew Schultz's information, and that council with regards to future street naming policy take into consideration full name street names.
Thank you. This is a full resolution. Call that question. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution's carried. Thanks, everyone. And our final delegation this evening is representation from the Tanager Drive and Falcon Road section of the community. I've got Art Baumunk and Mark Vanderpool here to make presentation. And this, I understand, is a singular presentation with 2 individuals regarding the sewer and the hookups and the County of Oxford. I'm gonna have to ask the clerk, I have one presentation presented by. Has to do with timing. As long as we're with the concurrence of council, are we able to separate? That's fine. I know you won't be. No, this is actually very serious. So I'm gonna call upon Art to come up, and actually all we'll need to do is at some point in time. No, you can actually, the first line probably just add in. Okay, so welcome.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Good evening, everyone, mayor, councilor, staff, and to others that are still here this evening. I'm Art Beaumont, and my wife Sue and I live at 35 Tanager Drive in Tillsonburg, so we're very thankful to be able to speak with you this evening. Now, the residents of Tanager Drive and Falcon Road affected by the conversion from septic to a sewer system are all opposed to the cost and lack of communication by the town of Tillsonburg and Oxford County. We were kept in the dark and fell through the cracks on numerous occasions. You can see attached is a petition signed by all the residents, everyone affected by this particular project. Now, a notice in paper form dated June 28th, 2022 was delivered to Tanager Drive and Falcon Road residents. Some found the letter in their mailbox between their doors. One was found in a garden bed. Others didn't receive one. This so-called release, for the first time ever, mentioned a cost of between $10,000 and $15,000 to be paid by the property owners to the county. Now, no one had been able to get any information from the town of Tillsonburg or Oxford County up until this time, though some people were encouraged to sign up despite having no information at all to work with. Now, we can find no evidence of any attempts by the town of Tillsonburg or Oxford County to inform Tanager Drive and Falcon Road residents of the ramifications of the conversion, either by mail, email, messenger, council meetings, in person, or virtual meetings. Absolutely nothing. No information, no opportunity to ask questions, make suggestions, or provide a petition. Once again, we were ignored and we fell through the cracks. Now, the haphazard communication of June 28th by Oxford County invited us to talk about payment plans. But all of us went to that meeting to ask questions we'd never been given an opportunity to ask before. Compare this to the minutes of June 23rd, 2021 of the Oxford County North Street East Services Extension Project. I've included a portion of that document that says the public consultation process began in the fall of 2011. It included regular notices, and in accordance with procedures under the county water and sewer financing policy, public consultation was offered virtually to property owners, and letters were sent to each property owner. We were not provided any of that, even though there was a mandated obligation to do so. Once again, we were ignored and fell through the cracks. Now, another lack of communication that is really unbelievable when you picture it was the installation of the sewer hookups themselves. If the residents weren't home, the sewers were installed whether it was most convenient or where it was most convenient for crews contracted either by the town of Tillsonburg or Oxford County. One person walked out their front door to see the excavation about to begin and had to stop them because another crew recently had already installed a connection at the side of their property. The crew didn't know or ask where the septic tank was. There are many stories like this that we can pass along. Our hookup at 35 Tanager couldn't be in a worse spot. Professionals, including some from the town of Tillsonburg, can't believe where it was put. There should be compensation for those who will have to pay much more to hook up because of the lack of thought and due diligence by the people who authorized and did the installations. Why didn't notices go out to everyone in advance so they could give some thought and get advice on the most sensible and cost-effective locations before the work was done? Once again, we were ignored, disregarded, and fell through the cracks. It didn't have to be this way. Tanager Drive and Falcon Road residents had already suffered through COVID-19 closures, 2 years of heavy construction, the disappearance of farm fields in their backyards, replaced by a new development, and years of more construction. To cap it all off, a bill in the mail to pay for something they didn't need, didn't ask for, and didn't want. I've included the recent billing information we all received. We've not been told to this date what it's based on. We're asking town council to support our efforts to receive consideration and fairness, and for the county to reevaluate the price we're being asked to pay and compensation for poorly located sewer hookups that will drastically increase the private cost to complete the connection. We do so because of the lack of communications we are entitled to by those who are obligated to provide it. I'd like to thank you very much for an opportunity to speak to you this evening, and I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
First of all, thank you very much, Art, and welcome to Tillsonburg, and welcome presentation tonight. Are there questions for the first part of the delegation for Mr. Ballmer? I know that there's something being prepared by council that will address or at least advance some of that. So maybe we'll ask Mark to come forward, and then maybe upon that conclusion, there may be something in combination. We'll go to the tag team portion of the agenda and see if there's anything.
Just one thing I was neglected and I should have mentioned it. Do I have a few more minutes? Or am I done?
Well, no, proceed if you've got something
Can I just say-
you know, we've got all
It's
your.
kind of an interesting aside, to kind of put things in perspective, I suppose. There's a young lady who lives on Tanager Drive. She asked me not to use her name this evening. She and her husband, who since passed, built their house on Tanager Drive in 1968. She says at that time, she asked somebody from the town when her septic would be converted to a sewer system. She was told by somebody from the town at that time, within 5 years, guaranteed. It's now 54 years later. She's received a notice from the county that she has to pay over $10,000 for her long-awaited sewer connection, which of course doesn't include the private cost to make the final connection. She also passed along that back in 68, her mortgage was less than what the county is now asking her to pay, the county loan. So for what it's worth. Thank you very much.
Mr. Vanderpool, welcome, sir. Just maybe your address as well. I think we've moved on from Tanager on to Falcon, so welcome.
Oh, I'm still on
Oh,
Tanager.
you're on, oh, I thought we had one, okay, go ahead. That's my mistake. So please make sure that your address is properly.
Mayor, Council. I'm Mark Vanderpool. My wife and I reside at 39 Tanager Drive, Tillsonburg. I think our biggest concern, well, the cost, of course, nobody wants to see a $20,000 bill. Unless it's in your favor. The other part is the lack of communication. It was very poor. This whole thing was poor. And I think that's where our biggest concern is. It happened to us, who else is it gonna happen to? Like, there was nothing communicated. As we said, the hookups. If you weren't home, it's probably dead center right by your water. And that's unfair. I was told it was gonna go up the side. They changed the plans of that subdivision, so that was gone. So I'm out front. So I think that's our biggest concern. Is why, I guess, why do we only find out the cost? It's a quoted job. I'm pretty sure we know pretty close why or what the cost would be. So that should be communicated before the job even starts. But there was nothing. And it's very disheartening. I mean, we've lived here 35 years. Mrs. Docks, 60 years. Like, I don't know, we can say COVID or we can, whatever happened, but it's like that subdivision has always been put on a back burner since it started. We just got streetlights, what, 15 years ago, 10 years ago? Somewhere in that ballpark. So I think moving forward, we should be, the communication has to be there. I mean, transparency is everything today. And I believe that we failed at that as a council, I do believe. Or the county, or I realize it's also the county involved in this. It's not just the town of Tillsonburg. So it's very disheartening. Like my lot, if you look at the original prints, says I'm already hooked up to sewer. So on these prints in here, I don't even hook up. So I certainly wouldn't complain to council about anything because I'm not even hooked up or supposed to be hooked up. So I don't know, pretty disheartening. And I know everybody tries hard and it's just a lot of money that we were very unaware of. And no communication on any parts of it. And it's, you know, if we're paying the bill, we should have a little bit of say somewhere. Or at least a portion of the bill. And how do we know how much this was actually quoted for? Like when I look at North Street, I know what North Street paid, $9,250. 2014 that actually started, went all the way to 2020. We take 6 months and we pay more than them. So I'm just curious of how it's justified over the cost. Is it always exactly the same for every house? Or is there differences all over? How does that work? So that's another concern that we have. I mean, it's pretty disheartening. But that's all I have.
Are there questions for Mr. Vanderpool? probably was negligent myself because I had it written down, and or if I may be, or available to kind of two concerns. One is the costing. One is the lack of communication. So, and I've got your presentation, I've got the letter, well written. The county's, this isn't about pointing fingers and shirking responsibilities. It's an operational aspect of the county of Oxford relative to, you know, they own the system. They don't own water and wastewater, and they'll do the notifications. I will of the opinion that there were notifications. You're saying that there weren't notifications. That's something that needs to be addressed. So,
There was a letter sent out.
well, no, I'm not talking about August 2022.
No,
That's
there
not
was
fair.
one, there was one sent earlier,
Yeah.
just saying that they're doing a reconstruction. There'll be a connection fee. No cost to the connection fee. I would assume a connection fee means if you're connecting, you're paying. If I don't want to pay, if I don't want to connect to the sewer system, my tile bed's fine. But you're leaving, we have no choice. 'Cause you're telling me-
That's a county thing. And I'll share with all the members, the presenters and the neighbors, I believe. We're the 28th of September will be this item will be where it's ultimately going to be addressed. And I would encourage that, subject to any other, you know, discussions of members of council tonight, that has the opportunity for this type of material to be directed again as a delegation to the county of Oxford on the 28th of September.
Correct.
But just a moment, Mayor.
Oh.
Thank you. No,
Oh, okay, no, I think, I'm not doubting, I mean, the signatures and the familiarity of the neighborhood and all of that tends to, you know, that's all reinforceable. I'm just saying at some point, there also needs to, I don't have all the information from the litany of whether something did get sent, didn't get sent, you know, and all of that. And you're right, this isn't the first time this has happened in the community relative to the expectation, which is in the official plan of the county of Oxford, that if you are in a service community, Ingersoll, Tillsonburg, Woodstock, now serviced hamlets, that when servicing is available and runs in front of your property, that you will be connected. And I'm not, that's not the debate for tonight, but that's in essence the small L law. And that's impacted North Street owners, Potters Road people, you know, anytime there's kind of an infill, that's it. Now, I'm absolutely concerned about the communication and how can we do a better job? How can the county do a better job? How can we, you know, ensure that, because that allows for planning as well. And so I'm encouraged to see what the resolution is, and then I would also, you know, encourage, you know, to spend the time we have available to continue to network and look forward to the 28th of September. That's the only advice without, you know, in this umbrella.
I guess I do have one other question
Yep.
too, and I don't know if it comes here, if it goes to the county. On North Street, when they did that, there's a pumping station that's put right front center. Is there any reason why it was there and it never went to the train tracks where it originally was gonna go? I'm just curious.
I don't know
I don't
the
believe
operation.
that
I'm the
was-
only one here that, I mean, if there's slings and arrows that, but I don't do the operational aspect of draft plans and subdivisions. It was provided in a geographical area to promote the greatest return on the power and the distribution of the resources, like the water, you know, because you've got all that growth to the east, or I'm turning so that
Yep.
and of course across, and that was at some point part of the county's positioning on where it was located.
Okay, so the town has no bearing on that. They can't say.
I'm
We would prefer
saying
it
there would have
somewhere
been, I'm sure, I shouldn't say sure. There's communications in all of these things, but that is a county of Oxford asset. That's not me pointing the finger, because that's
No, no.
too easy. It's too easy to do. So I think, if we're gonna talk about communication, and if that's the key thing, then we gotta learn from this, and we have to ensure either as a individual, as a community, as a county, that we're actually advancing what we're actually trying to learn a little bit about
Yeah,
tonight.
and I think that's the biggest thing, just the lack of communication through the whole thing.
Okay,
I mean, even from where your hookups are is the big one.
very good. Thanks,
Thank you.
both the gentlemen and all the neighbors that you're representing. So thank you very much. Was it Counselor Govesi? And you got kind of a quick amendment there that you could help us with?
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Rosehart that the presentation by Art Beaumont and Mark Vanderpool, Tanager Drive, Falcon Road Sewer Project be received as information. And that the council of the town of Tillsonburg recognize that a lack of communication persisted throughout this project, which took place during COVID lockdowns. Flyers and information were not received and virtual meetings are not accessible by all. And that the council of the town of Tillsonburg would respectfully request the county of Oxford to reevaluate the fees and also the communication process for reasons cited in this presentation, and that this resolution be forwarded to the county of Oxford for consideration.
Questions for members of council? Just confirming that just confirming the intent is that this document titled Tillsonburg Town Council September 12th will form part of an attachment covering letter from the clerk along with the resolution. Okay. Okay, please, yeah.
I do have a quick comment.
Sorry.
About the hookups, I did ask someone, and so typically the town does, and this would maybe be a concern that you could take back, comment from myself, but typically the county does go and plunk the connection stub in the middle of a property. For some people, that could actually result in thousands of dollars, taking that run from the middle of the property over to where it has to hook up to the house. And maybe that's something that the county could consider in the future is better planning, more communication with residents to get those stubs in locations that make more sense for people.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Molnar. More so a comment than any questions. First, I'd like to thank the mover and seconder for putting this on the floor. I think it really speaks to the lack of communication that the neighborhood has seen. I'm very disappointed to hear it. But I hope that there will be some resolution at county council. So thank you.
Anything further? Resolution on the floor. Prepare to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, that resolution is carried. Again, thank you, gentlemen, and to your neighbors as well. So, and I'm not your guiding light, but I would encourage, and if you need any assistance from the local clerk's department, to ensure, or even through my own office, that if it's your intent to appear as a delegation on the 28th, it would 7 o'clock start at the county administration building in Woodstock.
Thank you very much. You should have. Thanks to everyone here this evening. Thank you so much.
You. There's a resolution. We moved to informational items. There's a resolution in response to requests from THI Board of Directors. Councillor Esseltine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've made a change to the provided motion, and it reads that the Council of the Town of Tillsonburg receives resolution 2022-065 from the THI Board of Directors as information and will defer appointing Tillsonburg CAO Kyle Pratt and 2 members of council to participate in the THI Board's MSA MOUD review committee until the beginning of the new term of council in November.
Discussion for members of council. Councillor Govesi, please.
I do have one question, Mr. Mayor, maybe I guess through you to the CAO. So is there a timeline on this, that this has to be worked out? If there isn't, I'm fine with the resolution, but I just want to double check.
To the mayor,
the MSA, and I may stand corrected, so I'm going by memory, expires at the end of the year. So we would want to get that renewed as soon as possible. What happens if the MSA is not renewed by the end of its term? I don't know. Typically, agreements can go on a mutual agreement until they're negotiated.
The MOUD, the Memorandum of Understanding and Direction, is a two partners signed, meaning one, the corporation of the town of Tilson, the other corporation of Tillsonburg Hydro, Ontario Limited Corporations Act. That lives until it's amended by or requested to, which that we've both agreed to, but have to work through that process. That's what part of that. The MSA is actually an operational agreement between the town of Tillsonburg and the THI as a limited corporation. And while needing the support of council at some point, and maybe subject to an earlier presentation by the CAO, the MSA is, I would suggest, less negotiable from a governance perspective than the MOUD. Because it's actually an active operational document. Anyways. Motion to defer. All those in favor, opposed, that resolution is carried. It's not a public meeting, is it? I would ask for council's support based on the occupancy of the gallery is getting very narrow. With council's concurrence, may I ask that we move to item 12.3.1? It's a declaration of land surplus, Woodhaven Drive. Concurrence, council? Okay. Counselor Luciana, you have a resolution, and then Mr. Pancha will be here to address any question.
Yeah, it's moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Rosehart that the unopened right-of-way lands located south of Ridge Boulevard and Woodhaven Drive, described as Part 8, Plan 41R 940, be closed. And that a small portion of the unopened right-of-way lands located south of Woodhaven Drive be declared surplus to the needs of the town of Tillsonburg in accordance with bylaw 2021-031 land disposition, including suitable notification to the public, and that bylaws be brought forward for council's consideration.
Thank you, Counselor Luciani. Counselor Govesi, please. Oh, I can see their hands over here.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Cephas. Would you have, okay, so one of the concerns about the sale of this property is that there'll be a loss of like protected space, green space that's home to different species of birds and trees, et cetera. So would you have any information on what this land would be used for if purchased by the proponents that would like to purchase it?
Through the mayor to Councillor Govesi, my understanding is certainly that the lot adjacent to this will be developed for a resident and amenity area, and this would just be an additional amenity area to that lot. This area, and just to go back a little bit, it is in the report, of course, it is designated environmental protection and zoned open space, which permits very few uses. So there isn't really any ability without significant public processes to add uses, if you will, to these lands. So I think, hopefully that answers your question, but it's getting to the point of what can be done with these lands.
Thank you.
Anything further? Certainly. Okay, go ahead. Councillor Esseltine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Cephas as well then. So what is the sort of the depth? Like, will this area, does it include that whole piece up to the manufacturer's fencing? From where the house will be built, like from the subdivision there, and then going southeast, I guess. Does it include the entire space there between where the house would be built and where the fence goes up for industrial area? Will there be room, like, will there be sufficient space or enough space for there to still be a trail through there? Or will it block everything off from going past that road? Thank you.
There's a few questions in there through the mayor to Councillor Esseltine. The entire road allowance and council will recall having seen this before. The entire road allowance is roughly 66 feet wide by, I think, just over 2,000 feet long. Previously, we brought forward the entire road allowance to be considered declared surplus. In this case, we're coming back with just a specific request that we received, and we think that's much more appropriate. So in terms of, I think what you're asking me, and I hope that I'm capturing this correctly, is that would there be the ability to put a trail through this area? Is that correct?
Even like a natural trail for people, but also for wildlife? Is there, will there be open space there that they can move across? Or will it be blocked, dead end?
I'm not aware of any existing fence anywhere in this area along the back of the property, I should say. So wildlife can right now move through both this right of way, if you will, and the other lands to the south, which are part of a ravine and woodlot area. So there is significant space there for that. So I'm not aware of, I guess, is there, I think, does that answer the question? I think that's.
Are you saying yes, that there will continue to be a trail through there?
This goes back to a previous report, but in looking at the identified length of the right of way, even though this request is only for a small portion of that, south of that right of way is an abundance of open green space where any natural existing half of it was probably an ANSI or not far from the ANSI relative to expansion of the golf course a number of years ago. Anyways, it's I would say that there'd be even if like walls or gates and fences were there, natural, the natural migration of wildlife would still exist down in that area. That's all. That'd be my. I'm not the long point guy. I'm just saying that would be my. You go to the spot of least resistance.
Okay, and are we just then, okay, I'll let that go, but are we just then looking at one extension of one property? Or are we looking at multiple extensions of properties along there?
Through the mayor to Councillor Esseltine, the previous or the entire right of way backs on properties that are on, of course, Woodhaven Drive, also on Ridge Boulevard. Some of the Ridge Boulevard properties, as you can see from the map, actually don't back onto this right of way. So there was a lot of confusion initially, I think, and some concern raised about just what we were doing with all this land or what was going to happen. Right now, we're proceeding with one request that we received. However, I want to be clear that I do anticipate that other individual property owners may approach us as well, pending the outcome of this process.
And if it was not just one, this would have been coming forward in any way, shape, or forward as a motion. It would have required a motion of reconsideration. This is significantly different enough that it didn't require that. So that's just the governance aspect of reinforces that this is different than what was originally brought forward.
So my consideration or my concern is that there's not space for wildlife to move through there. And I think that would be too bad because we're losing a lot of natural space in town, places where kids can go through, areas like that. So if we're shutting it off, I think that's too bad. If it continues to be, a sufficient width. Because that's the difference between the golf course and Borden Crescent. Like the Crescent still goes there. It still goes up and through there. And right into the parkland on the other side of Baldwin Street. But are we stopping that here?
You're through the mayor to Councillor Esseltine. I'm not a biologist. All I can state are what I know are to be the facts. And what we have here is this road allowance or right of way, an open right of way, is in an area that's flat topography immediately adjacent to a residential plant subdivision that's been developed for a long time. The lands of the south are both continue to be flat, but also have a ravine as well. My passing knowledge of biology from bumping into biologists through my career suggests that a lot of the wildlife movement would be down in the ravine and follow those natural corridors that are down there where there's both water, different types of vegetation that can feed them, etc. I did a quick math here on the width of that woodlot area, and it's over 285 meters wide at its widest point. So I think removing, 66 feet, not even removing, but potentially removing 66 feet from that still leaves plenty of room for that. So
Continue that then with other homes on Ridge Boulevard, I think. Are we gonna have like one lot this way, one lot this way, one lot this way? Like, is it gonna be a mess? That's what I'm wondering. Like,
the woodlot is an existing woodlot, so I suspect that there are county controls on private landowners removing woodlots. I don't have all that information here in front of me. I'd have to research that. But my understanding is that this woodlot is protected more or less. And some ancillary tree removal can take place, but not the entire area. So I don't see a real change, to be fair, in terms of the woodlot function and natural function for that area.
thank you.
I would suggest that in communications, a lot of the requirement for the additional space isn't bringing any net or new value. What it does is brings a artificially enhanced building envelope, perhaps relative to the separation from the setbacks required, because those setbacks in the area that's actually being potentially deemed surplus has no quote unquote buildable value. You can't build on it. And I think in the report, those are all positive things that are in there, parkland and enhancement. So I thank you for your observations, but I think the official plan and the zoning already protect anything that could potentially go on there unless we revisit all of this again. Anyways, any further questions? Resolution remains on the floor. Prepared to call that. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now we have to revert back to where we were. If I could be reminded of that, and thank you. 11.1, 11.2 through 11.2 and 11.3. Deputy Mayor, you have that resolution, please.
I do.
Identified as motion 1.
Tillsonburg BIA appointment of a member to the BIA Board of Directors. Just a minute. Hang on. Yeah, this is.
Yeah,
script. Let me just a minute. Hang on.
It'll be both the BIA and the MMAH correspondence.
Just 1 second here. Do you see it, Pete? I'll just read it from your script. Thank you. Got it. Okay. Got it. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Luciani. The council receives the correspondence from Tillsonburg BIA dated August 10th, 2022, and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing dated August 10th, 2022 as information. And further, that a bylaw be brought forward to amend bylaw 4260 to appoint directors for the BIA Board of Directors. So what you're looking for.
Yep. Sounds like a plan.
Good, thank you.
Discussion for members of council. Seeing none, we're prepared to call that question. All those in favor? Opposed, the resolution is carried. And secondary correspondence along with reference to the links regarding the federal electoral district redistribution. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Esseltine, that's called motion number 2 on page 8.
I've got it here. It's okay.
May
I've got
have
it.
printed or you looked at yours, Dave.
I've got an earlier print, right? Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Esseltine. The council receives a correspondence from Jeff Helsden regarding the proposal by Elections Canada for realignment of electoral boundaries, and Frank Van Heck also regarding the proposal for Elections Canada for realignment of electoral boundaries as information. And further, the council for the town of Tillsonburg strongly objects to this proposed realignment, and further that the corporation makes application through official correspondence to represent this position in the public response process in advance of September 25th, 2022. And further, that this material be forwarded to the Oxford County or the County of Oxford and Member of Parliament Mackenzie and Member of Provincial Parliament Hardeman as information.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Discussion for members of council? Councillor Louise, please.
I do it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do just have a comment. I'm not sure that maybe the public understands the context of this electoral reform. This could have, this could place Tillsonburg in a position where we're captured in Norfolk, Haldeman, and Six Nations, which is rather a large geographical territory, and not necessarily an entire area that has the same, concerns moving forward. I also think it's going to create confusion between provincial ridings versus federal ridings. So I'm definitely supporting this motion. Also, I think there will be a loss of some rural voices that need to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Govesi. Further questions or comments? Put a lot of effort into, thank you very much for your potential support for this. I've also ensured that this is on Oxford County Council's agenda, network with various members of Oxford over the last few days to ensure it gets hopefully what similar support is being received here today. And had outreach with current MP. And so I don't want to alienate the commission or anyone else with any bias, but it's important that we strongly object to this for a number of reasons. Some were indicated, some have to do with advocacy, some have to do with funding, whether it's housing or infrastructure funding that is like ICIF funding. And I can only look at director of look at the funds we have coming down through efforts of our Recreation, Culture and Parks Department. But those are three groups: they're the federal, provincial, and municipal. And now, if we're not with the same body that we fought so hard for the last 4 years when the provincial government was looking at regional governance reform. We've heard loud and clear from the residents, the stakeholders, and the businesses at Tillsonburg that no, this is where we belong, and we belong as a two-tier, but with our own identity. And now you're potentially going to lose that to another area, with full respect for which is a single tier. And it's not about that you're going to be taken there as a municipality. That's where your vote and your advocacy and your representation would be from. And that's the first step for potential provincial realignment. So I don't want to be the alarmist, and I don't want to, but I think this is a natural first step. And I think we've got to rely on some of our other partners to send the same message. So anyways, anything further? We'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, carried. We will move to staff reports and committee of appointments to affordable and attainable housing committee. Councillor Govesi, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rosehart, that Cole Warwick be appointed as an Oxford County representative on the Affordable and Attainable Housing Advisory Committee, and that a bylaw to amend Schedule A or bylaw 4247 be brought forward for council consideration.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion. Councillor Parker, we'll start with you.
Through you,
around the
Madam
horn.
Mayor. This is a positive change for the committee. I think that with Mr. Warwick's position at Oxford County in the housing programs coordinator position. I think he will be a great asset to the Affordable and Attainable Housing Committee as we move forward. Thank you.
Counselor Esseltine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wonder if removing Lisa Lanthier from the committee at the same time would make sense, because we're really switching from her to him. And so that will need to come out of the committee's profile as well. So if it read
In the
that Cole Warwick be appointed as Oxford County representative in place of Lisa Lanthier.
Will be appointed in the bylaw to amend. So
Yeah.
you're, as long as the person amending the bylaw, clerk or representative thereof, removes her name when inserting his,
Yeah.
I think the resolution's good, but good pickup.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and to encourage support of this, and thanks, Councilor Parker, thank you, Councilor Esseltine, for that observation. But most importantly, kind of building upon the prior conversation about the electrical, what an absolute contribution that the County of Oxford secons people out from time to time to a local advisory committee and the value they bring. This is because this individual is moving in, has different experiences, and then the other referenced individual can head and be doing some things she's passionate and very well versed at. But I think the messaging too is that when you're partners and you bring those skills in, hopefully the benefits of that committee will be seen, quickly. So anyways, good point. Then we'll call that question. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is carried. And we move to economic development. That was recently 6-1. Implementation report regarding boundary adjustment committee. Councillor Parker, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Luciani, that staff be authorized to release a request for proposal for professional consulting services with respect to council's resolution in response to the Boundary Adjustment Committee's recommendation.
Thank you. Any discussion for members of council? I'm considering this moderately redundant in giving us our need and asking for and authorizing, because we've given direction. This is just the actual RFP, and the work would be actually be part of the restricted act portion relative to the time period. But anyways, it's good to ask and good to support. We'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution's carried. And we move to operations and development, traffic bylaw amendments on Francis Street. Councillor Rosehart, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Council Gilvezi, that council adopt bylaw 2022-059 to amend the bylaw 2022-029, being a bylaw to regulate traffic and the parking of motor vehicles in the town of Tillsonburg. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rosehart. Discussion relative to this amendment? Call that question. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution's carried. Thanks very much, Mr. Van Hellewen and your team, some of whom are good timing. No, would you like to make a presentation on the town of Tillson's development guidelines and design criteria? Shane is back. I know Richard's here as well, and Gino, the individual or chief building official, is also here by law enforcement. So at this point in time, the town of Tillsonburg's development guidelines and design criteria. Deputy Mayor, you have a resolution, please. Okay, just about.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Parker, that council adopts the use of the town of Tillsonburg development guidelines and design criteria dated 2022.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Council, you've had the chance to review the report. Rather, the actual policy is lengthy, but the report is, I would suggest, was concise and well put together. Are there questions from members of council? Counselor Esseltine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question. So I noticed in the early part of the document where you're talking about what's new there, you mentioned about boulevard trees at each municipal address. Is this on town-owned land or on the property of the person who owns that property?
Through the chair to Councillor Esseltine, it will be on the town right of way in the boulevard.
So it will be the town's responsibility to purchase and plant that tree?
In new subdivisions, it will be on the developer to buy the tree. So it'll become the town's asset once thereafter.
And will we see this happening in already built areas, or this is just for new builds?
Through the chair to Councillor Esseltine, it would be for new development only.
Anything further from members of council? Thanks for the outreach. Is there any way that council can be helping you in like sharing some of the successes in this and some of the things that are, you know, reducing the barriers for development and stuff? So you don't have to ask that now, but I think this is an evolving thing. That's a pretty intense document. You and your team live it every day. And we're investing in ways to reduce some of those, the timing mechanisms and other things we should be proud of. But if there's things you need or things you hear, then we're need to be aware of those. That's all it is. Anything further? We'll call a question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is carried. Tigo, the Christmas bus. We go. So there's a resolution regarding the operational hours and special hours of the Tigo Christmas bus. Councillor Esseltine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Luciani, that council authorizes the Tigo in-town bus to operate from 7:55 a.m. to 5:55 p.m. on Saturday, November 26th, December 3rd, December 10th, December 17th, 2022, and that the cost to provide this service be paid through the 2022 Transit Services operating budget, and that sponsorship opportunities be made available to offset any operating costs.
Thank you, Councillor Esseltine. Discussions from members of council? Prepared to call that question. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is carried. We move to the implementation. No, we've done Francis Street. I didn't turn my page. Regional Airport Management Services. There's an amended resolution. Councillor Govese, you have a resolution, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Parker that council receives the recommendation to extend the Tillsonburg Regional Airport Management Services with the Lumix Group as information, and that this report be sent to the Airport Advisory Committee for comment and review. And may I speak to that, Mr. Mayor? So there was a low uptake on a survey that was sent out. A lot of feedback that I've received would suggest that tenants are unclear on what the role of the town is versus the role of the company that's contracted out at the airport. I feel that the committees play a valuable role, and I feel that this is something that the committee should have discussed, and it hasn't yet. Furthermore, I also think there's other options out there, and at the very least that this should maybe go out for a public tender. Because I think that there are other options available and other interests by people to manage the airport. The current manager, as the report indicated, is working very hard and gaining confidence in his role. He does work for a third party. There's no guarantees like that current manager will be there long term. And I do believe there was a time that Lumix did not fulfill their contract when the first manager quit, and there was a gap. There was some lost communication, and some hangar applications were delayed because some of that communication was lost. So I think it's really important to at least send this back to the committee. We have a meeting coming up in a couple of weeks, and then they can send something back to council. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments from members of council? Counselor Esseltine, please.
I just wondered, I was looking at the survey and I realized that there wasn't a good response to it, only 5 individuals by the sounds of it. And I wondered about how the survey was presented. Now, I noticed that it's yes or no, and I wondered why it wasn't a rated 1 through 5 choice. I'm wondering if the yes and no to people, I guess you won't be looking at doing that again. The information you've got isn't really worthwhile information, I'm going to say, because of the number of people who responded. Would you look to do something like that again? That's a little more developed.
I believe it was just more to just kind of glean and get a sense of where people are, not necessarily how would you rate them 1 to 5, but just, you know, have you had the opportunity to communicate with the airport manager and what has been your general sense of the expertise that's there, not necessarily like you would do with an employee in a performance evaluation, just get a sense for how they're feeling in general. Sorry through you, Mr. Mayor. And we just sent it through as a general email through to the tenants at the airport.
Did people communicate why they weren't interested in assisting by answering that?
No.
No. Yeah, okay, thank you. I just thought it could be it could give you more valuable information done in different ways. Thank you.
Further questions from members of council? There's an original resolution, just so the public is aware, to extend the terms and conditions of an existing agreement. There's nothing in the resolution that says that won't happen. This is a resolution to suggest that the information go officially to the Tillsonburg Airport Advisory Committee. I would anticipate some response back to a sitting council as soon as possible based on the deadline of the 8th of October, the 7th of October, probably. Yeah, 7th of October would be an annualized year from the 8th of October, 2021. And their terms and conditions for the right to terminate the agreement. And consistent with the rights to terminate are the rights and privileges to extend. And that's all part and parcel of the same agreement with the Lumex Group, who I've heard very positive things with. And every time I've been at the airport, meeting with most of the recent one, and I can concur that there was a situation where the original person was there and good young and then was growing in experience and then was not there. So I'm say the people who are both private and who have businesses are very comfortable. When I've been approached, I'm not talking that I go out of my way. I'm approached and with satisfaction. I think facts are important in the discussions, especially regarding the airport. And council made a fairly significant decision to take a step a year ago in a new direction. And I haven't heard in any of that feedback that it's not working. I would have also liked to have seen larger numbers to demonstrate that it is, or what improvements we can make. And I would think that's probably the value that the advisory committee may be able to provide, is how best the relationship that we've got and how we can nurture it and bring greater value can be. So I think there's not, what have we said? There's nothing there that would deter that. I believe, though, that council has to get back. This has to arrive back to council as quick as possible. And outside of an update on the 26th, I don't know when the next, these are usually third Thursday of the month.
Yes, approximately.
Yeah. And then the aspect of getting it onto an agenda, you're probably talking first meeting October at the earliest. And then, but that's probably post the 7th of October, 2022. So I'm just bringing those all together as observational points. Resolutions on the floor. I'm not opposed to, of course, I'm absolutely not opposed to utilizing the skills and experiences of the Airport Advisory Committee. But it ultimately will be a decision of council. Council's signatures on the original, and councils will need to be on the extension as well. So any further questions or comments? Councillor Govesi, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Richard. Can the contract be extended like for a 1 month or a 2 month period or, 3 month period to allow a bit of a process to take place? If that were the case? Like the
Through
limit,
Mr. Mayor,
limits.
I believe we can always ask.
Yeah, okay.
There's no harm
Thank
in
you.
asking.
Or
requesting.
you can, as I've had a discussion with the director today, was that it could be extended upon the current terms, and within the current terms of the agreement, then you can terminate with notification, which actually is the same as only extending for 3 to 6 months. So that was the conversation we had earlier today, but it's in the agreement, which we had before us back, a year ago or whatever, is that November 15th, 2021. So anyways, it's an extending and then having the conversation, or you're protected from the service. But then if other new opportunities, or you do a subsequent survey that brings additional opportunities or options to light, then I think that's, the part of listening to your network that are, as I said, have the skills and the experiences at the advisory level, understanding the final decision would rest with council. So I leave that as information for council's benefit, but without satisfying the resolution on the floor today, where are you come the 8th of October? Management wise at the airport?
It's something that we'd need to discuss. There's always I wouldn't be a good manager if I didn't have some sort of plan B or plan C sitting in my docket, and just in case.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? I would then, okay, we'll just take a vote. All those in favor? Opposed, resolutions carried. I would encourage maybe through Mr. Pratt and yourself, and thank you for all the efforts you've done and the tenure out there as well, is that that part of that may be just an operational update through senior leadership or even a report on council on the 26th on how we can, mitigate any kind of broach of time, because you wouldn't have had information back relative to the direction of the resolution. So, okay, that's all, that's plan B or C. Thank you. And mover and seconder, nothing under recreation, culture and parks. We could wait till roundtable, but Madam Director, do you have an update on the tree planting? Are you prepared for that, or do you want to wait till that's my heads up to, please don't forget at the end, because it was referenced, but I also wanted to get the consideration of committee minutes, the variety of minutes there. Councillor Luciani, you have that resolution, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Rosehart that the following council committee minutes be received as information. August 3rd, 2022, Affordable and Attainable Housing Advisory Committee minutes. March 8th, 2022, Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes. March 24th, 2022, Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes. June 14th, 2022, Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes. August 10th, 2022, Cultural, Heritage and Special Awards Committee minutes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Luciani. Is there discussion, observations on any of those items? Councillor Rosehart, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, on March 24th, there was a concern about the splash pad and the leaves falling for a slip. Is that something that we're looking at? Will the water still be running for the splash pad at that time?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Rosehart. The splash pad's scheduled currently, weather pending, to close at the end of September. They're doing circle checks every morning and brushing off the property. We can monitor and see how the tree accumulation or the leaves include our maintenance to enhance that. But at this time, it's scheduled to close at the end of the month.
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
No, and I would just, sorry, I was just gonna echo and thank the team. A little slow start, the parts, some of the aspects. Can't go over there without seeing smiling faces and families and grandparents while the other kids are running around. Congratulations to everyone. It'll fast become a jewel, so thank you. Sorry, Counselor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the clerk, I have a question. I was gonna ask this the last meeting. I thought I'd give it one more chance. The police services board minutes. So like we seem to get like a dump maybe like every 5 months or something, but there's nothing consistent on here. So I'm just wondering, where are they and why don't we see them on a regular basis?
That is a good question, and it's something that we can look into. No minutes have been received from the police service board, and I'm not even sure exactly when they've met, so we'll definitely look into that.
Thank you.
Anything further? No, you got to ask yours over here. No, we're prepared to call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed, resolution carried. Any notice of motions that should appropriately brought forward tonight for a future meeting of council? Seeing none, there are no resolutions resulting from a closed session. So we move to bylaws. Councillor Parker, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Luciani, that a bylaw to amend Schedule A of bylaw 4247 to define the mandate and membership for committees, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 3295 as amended, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 329. Sorry, I'm gonna go back, ZN 722-06, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 3295 as amended, ZN 72207, a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 3295 as amended, ZN 72208, a bylaw to amend bylaw 4260 to appoint directors to the Board of Management of the Tilson. I assume that's supposed to be Tillsonburg Hydro, right? Oh, the BIA board?
No, was the only
To the
appointment.
BIA, okay, to the BIA Board of Management, for the Tillsonburg to be read for a first, second, third, and final reading, and that the mayor and the clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign the same and place the corporate seal thereunto.
Thanks, Councillor Parker. Discussion, go start with Councillor Esseltine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was noticing in the first bylaw listed, so bylaw 4247 to define the mandate and membership of committees, that some of the committees that I am on, the membership hasn't been updated. There are people's names who are no longer with that committee. And I wondered if we should go through, because we're getting to a point where we're going to have new committees. So it would be good to have that quite accurate before we get to the point where people are coming and going from the committee. So I could certainly provide you, well, I'm sure you could find that too. I could provide you with the names that are different on the committees that I'm on, but it's maybe something that could take a bigger look at.
Thank you. To the chair. Thank you, Councillor Esseltine, for that. Committees. She noted that there were many on the bylaw that were outstanding. She suggested, she had two options. One, we can wait and update it and bring this bylaw later, or we could bring it now and get Cole on the committee right away. And we opted to put Cole on the committee right away. And Laura will be looking at that in further detail. She realized there was tons of outdated individuals on there. So thank you.
Further on the comprehensive reports from various advisory committees. Then we're on the bylaws. I know we are. At 30. All those in favor? Opposed, resolution is carried. That was first, second, and third and final reading. Are there any, now we move to the confirmation bylaw. Deputy Mayor, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gilvacy, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council meeting held on September 12th, 2022 be read for a first, second, third, and final reading, and that the mayor and the clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign the same and place the corporate seal thereon too.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Council, you've heard the resolution discussion. All those in favor? Opposed, resolution is carried. Any items of public interest? Anyone that would like to share any successes? I just thought you'd hit the home run on this one, so.
Yeah, there were a number of Tillsonburg minor ball teams that participated in OBAs, which is the Ontario Baseball Association Championships. And I don't want to steal all the thunder because I think Deputy Mayor Barras might have one that hits close to home. So congratulations to those teams and to the volunteers for the organizations for hosting tournaments here in town as well. A shout out goes to you because a lot of times that stuff gets missed. So it's great to have baseball back in our community at full strength and seeing kids out on the diamonds all summer long. So also a shout out to the Parks and Rec team for keeping the diamonds in great shape. So thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to pick up and bunt to,
I do, and it's not, I'm very proud of Brody and his team, the U15s, for taking the title. But I want to do another feather in the cap for Julie. Minor sports, minor ball had approached you and you did a walkthrough. Without being asked, you had arranged the next day for the outside edges to be cleaned up. Some things, some bleachers to be moved around, some garbage cans to be changed around, some porta potties, some trimming, pristine. And we just want you to know that the parents, and I'm speaking as a parent, not as deputy mayor or a councillor, but the parents were so impressed with the way that the fields look for that tournament. And said, finally, we've got, I shouldn't say finally, we've had some good staff in the past, but you've done exceedingly well for what was brought forward and the way that the ballparks were pristine for the service. One little thing that I would like to bring up, and I hate to put a negative on this, but someone was asking mid-season where the kids could go for a swim. And they're sitting right in the ballpark. And I know our signage, our Wayfinder signage was something that council missed this. And we should have said at that time, if you look over your shoulder, there's a pool there. And that's what we did. And that was the midsummer one. So it's something that you might have your staff look at for another season. Congratulations, Julie, for a job well done. Thank you.
Well, we're throwing our attention towards the Director of Recreation, Culture and Parks. Maybe it is only fair now to allow her to turn her mic on and share some exciting news with the rest of us and the community.
Thank you, Mayor Milner. Before I start speaking about the tree planting day, I would like to go back to the Deputy Mayor's comments and just share with you that we have had some internal interim positions, some acting positions. So as much as I would like to take credit for just making those connections with our user groups and being available for them, I have to send kudos out to our team. They did an amazing job just reacting as quickly as we had that meeting. Dave Phillips has been tremendous in his role. He's very passionate and he cares deeply about the fields and our field maintenance program. So kudos to David Phillips, as well to Matt Johnson, our manager of parks and facilities, who's done an incredible job. He's inspiring the team. He knows parks inside and out. And he, again, is also very passionate. So I appreciate the kudos, but I'm going to redirect them to the staff and all the employees out there that worked really hard to get that ready for OBAs this past weekend. Okay, so moving on to tree planting day, we're really excited to share that our staff have been working to create an event as part of National Tree Planting Day. We're going to be planting 200 trees on September 21st between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. at the rear of Memorial Park. There is a site map that's been laid out in consultation with our contract horticulturalist, that's Tim. We have 4 local schools participating. It looks like approximately 160 students between grades 4 and 7, which is incredible. Shout out to Sobeys, locally have supported and will provide some drinks and some healthy snacks for all the students and volunteers. We also, if any seedlings are remaining at the end of the planting session, we will be putting a call out if any of the residents want to come for that day to come by at 12 o'clock noon, and as while supplies last, they'll be there for and available for residents to pick up. We've invited a couple of the local committees if they want to participate, and council as well. We'd love to see you there and volunteering.
And I'm going to just continue the RCP and the facilities tie-in and then open the floor back up. But thank Councillor Parker as well. Really supportive of all the council. We had the opportunity to celebrate 20 years of passionate and contributions from Jim Richardson. Jim was able to retire recently, but actually 30 years for the marketing board at the old at the facility on Cedar Street, and it was kind of the last person out, and he just stayed there and was hired by the town day one and maintained kind of the operational influence of that facility and maintenance. And then he marched right through all the other contributions. So when you mention, you know, the Matt Johnsons and Dave Phil, the people you meet, like that was the connection. And I was going to echo, there are just people that care. And at the end of the day, you know, it's not about, you know, the height of the grass or how it's being trimmed. It's about they care. And the epaulet or the name on their sleeve actually does mean something. So to your team and the others, thank you. And that's I wasn't anticipating that, but I think it was appropriate. And thanks, Councillor Parker, for your participation as well. Anything further from members of council? Councillor Rosehart, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended, and as others did, sitting around this horseshoe on Saturday night at the Firemen's Association. It was very well done. And we really have to thank the community for supporting them. It was a wonderful turnout and we had a very good time. Thank you.
And following up on that, Wednesday night is the Shriners Barbecue in the arena. Coming up a week and a half after that, the third weekend, the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, I might have missed by a day, is the Thunder Rib Fest. And then, of course, exciting, the Terry Fox on the 18th of September, starting, and the celebrations are from the soccer park. And there'll be other things announced over the coming days and weeks, but those are the ones at this point in time have a timeliness until we meet again. So outside of anything further, Councillor Rosehart.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Esseltine, that the council meeting of September 12th, 2022 be adjourned at 8:36 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. All those in favor? Opposed? Resolution is carried. Thanks very much. Please stay safe.